All right, welcome everyone to our June Bike Walk Every Town webinar. My name is Maggie Mullen, and I am an advocacy manager at Active Trans, and today we're going to be going over event organizing ideas and tips, potentially as a way to find more supporters in your community and more people who are interested in improving biking and walking and fighting for these ideas with you. So before we begin, just want to mention uh, who we are. So the Active Transportation Alliance, we are a nonprofit. We serve the entire Chicagoland region, and our mission is to advocate for walking, biking, public transit to create healthy, sustainable, equitable communities. And our sponsors, UIC and REI, help make all of this possible through this webinar. And now I want to introduce our two guest speakers, Dave Simmons from Elk Grove Village and Jessica Mancina from Chicago Heights. They'll both be speaking about their extensive experience with organizing events. Dave is the president of the Friends of Cycling in Elk Grove group, and he's spent many years organizing bike pit stops. And Jessica Mancina is from Chicago Heights. She's a park commissioner there and has been involved in organizing the city's bike rodeo for many years. So we'll get started with Dave.
All right. Thank you, Maggie. Thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm here today to talk about our bike pit stops that Friends of Cycling in Elk Grove have been putting on at Bussey Woods. Look back, and it's since September of 2012. So want to talk about the evolution of it and some of the successes and challenges and whatnot. And really the way that this evolved was that some folks in our group realized that there were some issues, some safety concerns at Bussey Woods, and so we decided we wanted to try to do something about that to reach trail users and try to just impart upon them, share some ideas on how we can make the trail a little bit safer. So for those that don't know, Bussey Woods is out in the northwest suburbs, kind of out by Schaumburg. It's probably the closest kind of point of interest there. And it actually attracts more visitors each year than Yellowstone National Park, which is kind of a stat that the folks there love to throw out. So it is a very crowded trail, especially on nice summer weekends. So in terms of how we got involved, we actually just kind of asked the question. And so this is kind of a fun aspect of these pit stops in that we approached the Forest Preserve District and kind of told them what we wanted to do. And initially there was skepticism that we were just going to be this group of folks hanging out along the trail trying to pump up people's tires and pass out safety information. They didn't quite understand what it is we wanted to do, and even to the point where they were going to charge, ask us to purchase a permit for $250 in order to hold one of these events. Now, Friends of Cycling, we're a nonprofit, so certainly a $250 hit was not in our budget. So what we did, we continued to talk to them, explain to the district, actually used some of the information and some of the events that Active Trans has put on in terms of pit stops to really describe what it was that we wanted to do, which was, like I said, make the trail a little bit safer, really as a goodwill gesture, and to let them know that we weren't going to financially benefit from this. This really was just about being out there and sharing information. So after a few kind of starts and stops, we held our first event, as I mentioned, in September of 2012, and the event has only grown since then. I'll get to a couple numbers in a moment here, but as far as my involvement, the beauty of this event is that it started as an idea that I shared with our group, and immediately a few folks stepped up and wanted to be more involved. And it's now to the point where we have a separate committee and a smaller group of Friends of Cycling members who do all the legwork for this. So they contact the Forest Preserve District, they secure the dates, They make sure we have all the materials that we bring with. And so it was a bit of a relief to me because it was so nice that this group stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to take this on, we're going to make it even better, and I just show up as a volunteer now. So to step aside and see it kind of grow and flourish has really been great. So the other organizations that are involved in these pit stops, we have the Forest Preserve District is involved. They've sent out some volunteers. They've sent out information to us. The Forest Preserve District Police is involved as well. And really one of the big perks from that standpoint and that relationship is that they had a line item in their budget to purchase helmets every year, because in Cook County Forest Preserves, children 14 and younger are supposed to wear a helmet while biking, and they didn't have a venue to pass these helmets out. So it became a natural connection for them to attend our pit stops and to allow us and to help us pass out helmets. And then since this wasn't in the first pit stop, but we started a few years ago, and based on our counts, we've given away about 650 free helmets at Bussey Woods. So it's really been a big, really big success there. And then we've had a few of our sponsors have gotten involved as well. So it's certainly, like I said, it's grown over the years. As far as connections between advocacy, which is really the focus of Friends of Cycling in Elk Grove, and kind of getting the word out, right, to folks that stop by and improving biking and walking in our community, I would say the one thing it's done is given our group some exposure, and then the things that we're asking for and fighting for a little bit more leverage. So we've strengthened our connections with the Forest Preserve District, the police, the Village of Elk Grove knows that we put these things on as well. Some of our sponsors who have now come back from year to year. So yes, it's definitely grown by word of mouth, I guess, and it's just kind of the grassroots nature of what we're doing has helped. These pit stops has helped kind of propel some of that into more people's attention, which is certainly nice. So some success stories that I'd like to share. So we have an event called the Bussey Woods Night Ride, which is going on its 4th year this year. And I firmly believe that without the bike pit stops and that volunteer spirit that we brought to the pit stops and the connections we made with the Forest Preserve District and the Friends of the Forest Preserve, the Forest Preserve Police, and the folks in the village, that the night ride would never have happened. It was because we established a positive relationship. We showed folks that we were out there doing good and had certainly good intentions that our plan for the night ride was accepted. So that was a big win for us. Certainly we've gotten some new volunteers and some new members. We've actually are in the process of installing a permanent outdoor heavy-duty bike pump or a tire pump near where our pit stops take place. And it'll be the first of its kind in the Cook County Forest Preserves. And that, again, I think is because of this relationship that we've really fostered with these organizations. So those are some great success stories, as well as some stories that we've received from folks who have, say, received a helmet from us, and then, of course, weeks later end up wiping out and hitting their head, and they're so thankful that they had their helmet. So, that certainly makes it feel good that we're out there and making those changes. Challenges we faced, I would say the biggest thing was that initial resistance, because folks really didn't quite understand what we wanted to do. Once we got over that hump, it's really just been kind of going gangbusters since then. And it's to the point now where we're doing 5 of these events this year. We've tried to do 4 the last few years, and we kind of upped our game. And the district is more than happy to oblige, and the Forest Preserve Police continue to send officers to each of these events. So, that initial challenge, was really the only one other than the weather. So unfortunately, we've had to cancel a few if the weather's not nice. Um, but I would say for anyone else who might be considering doing this, and I know Active Trans, you guys do things in the city, and there have been pit stops along metro lines and things like that. I would say don't stop at the initial resistance, and find others who are interested in making whatever that location is safer or more educated about bike, walk, transit policies and frustrations, because chances are there are people out there that want to get involved. And I say that because our pit stops are easily the most popular volunteer activity that we have every year. Um, Even the five of them, I think we're almost completely signed up and full of volunteers, which is fantastic. And just this is a concept that is so easily repeated, whether it be in forest preserves or farmers markets, you kind of you name the location. It's a feel good, it's opportunity, it's a way to get information out to others that you may not have other venues like this to share that information. If I could real quick, I'm just going to share some of the numbers that we've kind of collected over the years. So we've had 22 of these pit stops now over the years, and it's amounted to about 175 volunteer hours. So, which is great. I'm sorry, over that, more than that, 375 volunteer hours, over 650 helmets passed out. It's fantastic. In the way that it's grown, we went from bringing a pump and a table to set up and a banner to set up along the trail to the fact now we've got a canopy and we've got multiple tables and chairs and we've got lemonade and we've got water and coffee cake and pumps and stickers, and we lube chains and do some basic mechanical fixes as well. So it's just really grown. And actually, the picture that Maggie's got up right now, we purchased some signage. So we got 4 signs either direction, because this is it's kind of at a curve along the Bussy Woods Trail, and found that it could cause some dangerous conditions if people don't quite know what to expect, and all of a sudden there we are. So I just spent $100 and purchased some signs so folks know that there's free lemonade, we'll fill their tires, there's free helmets, and then kind of know to expect us when they get around the bend. So yeah, that's kind of the information I wanted to share. It's like I said, it's been really successful. We have no intention of stopping, and it's we have summaries and information that I'm happy to share with folks if that's something that they wanted to repeat in their neck of the woods, no pun intended. So yeah, I guess with that, I'd entertain any questions, or if there's any other information you guys would want about Bussy Woods Bike Pit Stops.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. It's great to hear about the pit stops, and I love how you started, just with a table and a bike pump, and it grew into something really big. And so I feel like that's a good message for people. You just start small, just try something and see if there's interest. And you found that yes, there is a lot of interest in this, and we found that in Chicago too. So I think you're right that this idea could really spread around the region.
Well, that's a good point, Maggie, because like I said, this was obviously I was aware of. I think it was Elmhurst and Bartlett. They were doing the pit stops at metro stations during Bike to Work Week and that. So it's not a new idea. It's just a different location. So don't feel like an idea has to be brand new and never done before. And even if it's been done before, it may just be a matter of timing. So if you tried it and it failed, well, maybe a couple of years later you can try again.
Right.
There's something to be said for that resilience.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you very much for all the details about what you're doing. And when we send out an email to the Bike Walk Every Town group, maybe we'll include some links. So
Yeah.
in case anyone's curious about learning more and getting
And
one
if they
started.
or volunteer, show up, see what it's about.
Yeah.
Dates with you too. So we got
Yeah,
4
that would be
there.
great. When is the next one? When's the next pit
It is
stop?
July 21st.
Okay, so 1 month away.
1 month away. Yeah, we do them from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay.
We found that prior to 9 o'clock, there's mostly folks that want to go fast and aren't willing to stop. And then in the summertime after 1, it tends to get a little warm. So it seems like a sweet spot.
Yeah, great. Great. Well, thank you very much. So, next up, we have Jessica Mancina, who's going to speak about the bike rodeo she helps organize in Chicago Heights. So,
Hi,
Jessica?
and thank you very much, Maggie,
Yeah.
for having me. I am so happy to talk to everybody about bike rodeos. It is a passion of mine, and I'm going to start by describing what it is, how long it's been occurring here in Chicago Heights, how I got involved, and how I brought other people involved. So overall, a bike rodeo is entertaining and educational. It teaches kids bike safety skills and sharing the rules of the road, and we do it in a safe and a fun environment. We chose to do it in one of our parks simply because it was an event that started over 30 years ago. This year would be our 31st bike rodeo, and it was started with the Chicago Heights Police Department to teach kids bike safety. They partnered with the Park District along the years, and because I've lived in the community for my entire life, I remember as a kid going to the bike rodeo at Commissioners Park many years ago. I ended up taking my kids who were raised here in the same community to the bike rodeo. And while I was taking my kids, this was in the 90s, I would just notice certain things that in my mind I go, oh, they should do this different, or oh, this would be nice if they had that. At the time, it was a basic bike safety obstacle course, some fire engines. They would have maybe a few raffles for the kids to raffle off a bike or two, a few games. But we would bring our kids to load up the bikes, get them there, have some fun, and it would all be finished in about an hour. When I came along to get involved, which was in 2009, and started planning the event, I decided to expand it to try to keep more families there longer and make it a community picnic event. The purpose of doing that was to get the kids really stuck and like I like to call it, a footprint in their brain on how important biking is. And not just biking and being involved in playing outdoors and being active, but to make it part of a lifestyle and to start at an early age with the kids, to put it a footprint in their mind so when they grow up, they did the same thing I did, which is bring their children to these things, get excited, and then even better, get involved. When we started doing the bike rodeo in 2009, I decided to bring in some animals, some pony rides, more games, and have a lot more raffles. We went from two bikes in a raffle to 10. And then later we increased it to 12. Then we increased it to 15. Now we're at over 20 bikes that we give away at the bike rodeo through raffles. We give away many other different raffle prizes. So the kids earn raffle prizes by playing different games, and they get tickets, and they get to decide which raffle prize they want to try to win. And that keeps them in the park longer, playing games longer, spending time with their families longer, and making it an entire enjoyable, memorable event that hopefully will become a tradition for their family. The connection between organizing these type of bike rodeos and advocacy is so important because, again, when families are counting on something every year as a tradition, when families sit back and go, hey, do you remember growing up and we used to go to the bike rodeo? Yeah, I love doing that. Do they still do that? Yeah, they still do it every year. I love that. I love to see the same families coming every year. They're excited. They come with their bikes decorated. Why don't we have the pony rides this year? Why are we having this? And they let me know what they really were interested in. You see them coming with their bike helmets. Look, Miss Jessica, I've got my bike helmet on. I won this last year. It's like, great, good job. You know, you brought a bike helmet. You get another raffle ticket. So it's just this positive encouragement with the kids, with the families, teaching even the adults, the parents, on how to get involved with their kids in the biking area. It doesn't have to be just, going down the street. You can bring them to a park, get involved. You can go to the forest preserve and go down there. And educating the families on how to get involved and active out there. You'd be surprised how many families don't have a bike, don't feel that they could be involved, don't feel that they want to go to the forest preserve bike trails because they don't have a bike. So we're trying to fix that and get everyone a bike, or at least interested in the biking community. Success stories related to bike rodeo would be my returning families, seeing the kids show up at the bike rodeos with their helmets, showing me that their badge, that they went through the bike safety obstacle course. When I'm asking them questions about what side of the road do you bike on, and they're able to answer for me. It's just so educational, and they don't even know that they're learning. They're having so much fun that it is just a great day in the park that they can't wait to go back to the next year. A funny story just happened last month, and I'm part of the Chicago Heights Lions Club, and we have a Leo's Club at one of the grade schools. And I'm at the Leo's Club meeting, and it was at the beginning of May. It was before school was going to let out. And I asked the kids before leaving, do you guys know where Commissioner's Park is? And everybody's, yeah, we know. Then how many people go to bike rodeo? And 90% of the kids just shot their hands up, and they're like, yeah, we can't wait for bike rodeo. And then one kid goes, I won my bike there last year at bike rodeo. I'm like, great. So you have to get the kids excited and get them excited early, and it sticks with them over the years, over their life, and they're excited about it, and they love biking. We're introducing them to having a great time on your bikes, and that's really the goal here. Have a good time. Make biking part of your lifestyle, and we're going to teach them on how to do it safe. Now, describing event planning can be terrifying for some people who are not good with, or they think that they're not good with planning. I'm here to tell you that it is not a scary thing to accomplish. I believe Dave mentioned earlier about starting small, and Maggie mentioned how it's starting small and it continues to grow and spread. If you're interested in doing a bike rodeo, you do want to start off small. I like to say, don't bite off more than you can chew. Mind dump and throw all your ideas on paper. Decide what it is you can actually accomplish, and then put a plan to it. Planning is so important. Give yourself enough time to plan your event and find a location that's going to be large enough for you to house the people that are coming to see, for you to set up the obstacle course. Get other communities or entities involved, such as your local police department, your fire department, if the kids want to tour an engine while they're there, any other advocacy groups, and other people in the community that just like biking, your neighbors, your friends, your family. Family is my go-to for volunteers. And let them know your ideas. Get their input. People that feel that they're part of the initial process of something tend to spend more time with considering it as ownership with them. They start to take it upon themselves to help market it and spread the word. And that's huge. You really have to get a lot of volunteers part of it to spread the word if you don't have a large marketing budget. Some of the challenges you may face in bike rodeo is weather. If it is an outdoor event, which I'm going to guess that most bike rodeos would be, weather is a huge problem. We are at the mercy of Mother Nature to have good weather. You do have to understand the seasons. I used to do bike rodeo in May, and that stopped because I kept getting too much rain. So I pushed it into the end of June. You just have to play with it. Come up with a rain date in case the weather does push your event to close that day. Also, volunteers. Because people are volunteers, they're not getting paid. Sometimes they don't show up, and you might need them for a certain position or role at the bike rodeo. It's really important to get volunteers introduced to this event in the initial implementation of the planning process. What I mean is bring them in and ask them their input. Ask them, what do you think about this? Do you think that we should do face painting? Do you have somebody that you know would do face painting for the kids? Do you think that we should do a raffle? Do you think that we should do this? When you start bringing people in and asking their input on something, They tend to take some type of ownership of it, and they're excited about it. And now they feel that they were part of the process to make this happen, and they tend to feel like we're going to make this event a success. So communicating with your volunteers early is very important. And then, of course, marketing. You can put together a great event. You can spend so much time planning and putting everything into place and paying for things and getting donations. But if you don't market it to the community and no one shows, you did it all for really nothing. So you definitely want to get the word out about the event. What is the best way that I have found? Social media. Social media is a huge help with marketing to younger kids, especially younger moms or the teenagers, getting that word out in that way. We also have now done yard signs similar to what you've seen in the slide, where Dave put up the Bike Safety 101 down the path, which, by the way, Dave, I love, and I will be borrowing that idea for a bike rodeo.
Awesome.
The yard signs throughout the community, I just choose the subdivisions and I put them at every entrance point, bike rodeo, because it's something we do every year. People see it up and they're like, oh yeah, bike rodeo is coming up, I can't wait. And then we get a huge turnout. I've invested in large street signs before. They're not as beneficial as the smaller yard signs. I've invested in banners. Again, not as beneficial. I have found not as beneficial as the smaller yard signs. And making it very clear to your attendees that come that you will be taking pictures and using those pictures for marketing purposes is extremely important. You will need that in your registration form that you have everyone fill out when they attend. So again, the three challenges, just to recap, would be the weather, getting volunteers to commit, participate, and getting involved in marketing of the event. Some advice that I could give to somebody who is looking to do a bike rodeo. So you're saying, hey, bike rodeo sounds like a good idea. I don't know where to start. I want to get it going. What do I need to do? Again, you go back to what Maggie and Dave said, which is starting small. It will grow and spread. I promise you. It will grow and spread if you go through the necessary steps and don't give up. You want to plan. Plan. Come up with a plan. Get people involved. Find your location. Decide what it is you're going to offer to the kids and the families there. What is it that's going to draw them in besides a bicycle safety course? So if they bring their bikes, if they load up their bikes, or if they ride their bikes to your bike rodeo, and they go through the safety obstacle course, and they receive a little pin or a sticker or some type of, hey, thank you, great job, how are you going to keep them there a little bit longer and make it a really memorable time for them? It could be from just playing music and having a dance competition, or adding some hula hoops in the dance competition and having fun with that. You want to get the kids moving around and letting them know, we're here to educate you on bike safety, but we're going to do this in a fun way that you are definitely going to want to come back every year. And that is the most important part, again, putting the footprints with the kids, that making them want to come back every year. They will remind their parents to take them. The second part of my advice, if you want to do a bike rodeo, is understand, especially when you're doing your first bike rodeo, that mistakes are learning experiences. You will make mistakes, especially with your first event. Do not give up after that first bike rodeo. Do not give up after that first event if it's something you're passionate about and want to do, because it is needed. Learn from your mistakes. Take little notes to yourself throughout the event. Okay, this went wrong. Oh, I forgot to have a bathroom, a restroom and a hand wash facility on site. People were looking for a bathroom. Oh, I should have done that. You will make mistakes. Even the best event planners make mistakes, but you don't give up. You learn from your mistakes, and you move on into the next year when you plan the next bike rodeo and you know what to do different. And the third thing I want to leave with you is how important it is to bring in partners to help and get involved. And this goes beyond the volunteers I talked about earlier. This includes businesses in the community. This includes other groups or entities in the government sector, such as the police department and the fire department. Bring them in. Make them part of the event. Get their input. Explain to them how important it is and why why it is so important, and have them present that day. Get them involved in some way. A fire engine, let the kids tour the fire engine, taking pictures with the firefighters. Police department can help set up the bike safety course. Get officer friendly out there to take pictures with the kids. Somebody maybe in your area is really good at games or interaction with the kids, water balloon contest, throwing that. That's so easy. These things are so inexpensive and they're so easy to do, and all the kids enjoy it. And it's a lot of fun. Now all the families will want to come back every year. So besides that, I can also be contacted directly if anyone was to plan a bike rodeo and needed advice or guidance or had a certain question. I'm more than happy to help. At the end of the day, what I want to see is every children with a bike, families outside having fun, and bicycle and active transportation should just be promoted in every community and neighborhood. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great. Thanks, Jessica. It's I think you're definitely right that just getting kids excited is a really great channel to the adults. Like the kids get the adults excited, and great way to teach bike safety to everyone, these rodeos.
Absolutely.
And you get like 200 to 300 people attending the rodeo, is that right?
Last year we had over 200 families,
Okay.
and we were, I won't use the word lucky, but we did luck up because there was a soccer game at the other end of the park that morning of our bike rodeo. So because I knew this, I contacted the soccer coaches, and I let them know, hey, your soccer games end at 12. At 1 o'clock, we're having a bike rodeo. We're going to have hot dogs for the kids. We're having bikes we're giving away. There's no admission to get in. It's free admission. Spread the word with the parents, spread the word with the kids. And so when they finished their soccer games, they just all scooted over to the next event at the same park. They had a great time. There's no doubt about it, to the point that the soccer coach actually contacted me in April just to make sure I was still doing the bike rodeo. They were making sure that they were having their soccer game at that park on that same day, that same morning. So it was easier for the families to just soccer games that morning and then go over. And second part of that is they even decided to do a community garage sale at the other end of the park, away from bike rodeo, during bike rodeo, to bring in, because they knew we were going to have so much traffic, they decided to double up on the traffic flow and do a community garage sale on one end while we're doing bike rodeo. It all works. It can all work. We don't have to fight for the flow of traffic or families coming in. If families want to stop at the garage sales and come on down to bike rodeo, even if they didn't bring a bike, we've got stuff for them to do. We've got games, and we've got a ton of prizes for them to win. Pretty much every child that comes to our bike rodeo will walk away with something, whether it's bubbles from the dollar store or a $150 bike. The prizes range, and we make sure that everything is involved. All of the raffle prizes are involved with outdoor activities, something hula hoops, jump ropes, or bike accessories. Again, the end goal is to get the kids outdoors, active, involved, biking, moving, having fun, away from the TV, away from the video games, outdoors, enjoying the weather, enjoying the parks, enjoying the forest preserve, being with families, being a community, and putting it as a tradition in their mind that this is something that life is and life should be moving forward.
Great. Well, thanks, Jessica. And so that your event is June 30th, so not this weekend, but next weekend. So I guess if any of you are interested in seeing what a bike rodeo looks like in Chicago Heights, you should stop by.
At Commissioners Park, I believe you had a poster put up. Commissioners Park is 311 Chicago Road. We do expect the parking lot to be filled to capacity, so there is additional for overflow parking across Chicago Road. There's a church there that is now allowing us to use their parking lot on Saturday, since they are not open, for the overflow of traffic and parking.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for telling us all about the bike rodeo and everything you've been doing to make it a success. So I guess before we'll open this up to questions after I have one little bit to talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about organizing bike rides and walks. So if you have any questions after that, use the comment box should be in your left-hand corner, or you can email me and I will read your question. And my email is maggie@activetrans.org. But before we get to that, so bike rides and walks. So in the city of Chicago, which is where I'm based, we a few years ago, we had a federal grant and we were organizing bike rides and walks as a way to encourage more people to consider biking or walking as a mode of transportation. And this was focused in the city of Chicago. And so we learned a lot of lessons, as Jessica mentioned. We made a lot of mistakes, but learned a lot of lessons along the way on how to organize a ride or a walk. And so I just wanted to share a few of the lessons and some of the ideas that worked for us. So first, with organizing an event, I would say Jessica and Dave both mentioned this, but finding community partners is really important. They also have a network and they can really help spread the word. Again, as Jessica mentioned, the marketing is really important. They can help get more people involved and potentially some new faces interested in biking or walking. And then, really the first step to getting an event started is choosing a date, choosing a time, and choosing a start and end location. When we were organizing these events in Chicago, we actually didn't have a budget for the events, so we organized all these events completely for free. So like again, you can really start from scratch and potentially along the road you might be able to find sponsors or people donating, groups donating things, but you can, as long as you have some time and some passion, you can organize a bike ride, a walk, or a pit stop or a bike rodeo. So after you kind of set the date, time, start, end location, what we tried to do is we tried to create some type of theme around all of our events that just made it more interesting. People were more curious about attending a bike ride if they normally wouldn't consider doing something like that. And you can get creative and try to think about what are what is your community's personality? What are maybe some needs that could be met through a bike ride, or what are some nearby amenities or events that you might bring people to? So have a few, I just wanted to bring up a few different ideas that or some walking events that we organized in Chicago. So there's a variety of ideas here. We had a women's wellness walk. That's the photo on the right there. That was really popular. We did a 5K, and we partnered with a local church and a walking group called Girl Trek, and we had so much fun. Like the ladies were enthusiastic and just enjoyed walking around and seeing their community in a different way. There was a community in Chicago that has a lot of murals, so we organized a mural walk. We had someone who was familiar with the history of the murals lead the walk and talk about what we were seeing along the walk. We had an edible garden walk where we walked around and looked for trees and plants that you could actually eat, and so you can get creative. There's lots of different ideas, and the more creative you get, the more likely you'll capture some people's interest. And one person told me once that the secret to coming up with some type of theme is you want your event to be fun and weird, and that will draw in the people. So here are also some ideas for biking events, some rides that we organized. We had a bike treasure hunt where we had a bunch of different clues that people had to bike to, and that kind of showed people like, oh, how can you bike from the park to the grocery store, and how can you get to a local shop. We did Oh, a fun event we did. It was a bike ride and star party. We decorated our bikes in glow in the dark objects that you can get from the dollar store, and then we rode around and then ended at a park where a local astronomer met us there with his telescope, and he kind of told us a bit about the stars in the sky. The picture on the right there, that's from we had a flag party, an international flag party bike ride where we painted flags on everyone's faces, any country they identified with, and that happened to be in a neighborhood that has a very very diverse international population. So we were trying to choose an event that fit well with the community. So those are just a handful of different ideas, but uh, I'd love to hear if you have some fun ideas. Love to hear some of the bike rides or walks that you've perhaps organized yourself in the past. A few tips for bike rides. So, uh, coming up with a route, of course, is important beforehand. What we did for bike rides is we usually, for if it's geared towards adults, we usually did 4 to 8 miles. But it depends on who you're trying to attract. If it was more for kids or families, we stuck to 2 to 4 miles. We recommend for as you're choosing your route, uh, you know, you look if you're going to be crossing a busy street, look for a place where you can cross at a stoplight. Uh, Try to stay on residential streets, side streets where there's low traffic volumes. Taking right turns is preferred over taking left turns. It can sometimes get complicated, especially if you have smaller children in your group. And then also, as you're planning your route, avoiding construction areas. Sometimes it's a good idea to ride your route prior to the event to see if any adjustments need to be made. We ended up using uh, it was a website called plotaroute.com where we mapped out the route beforehand. You could also use Google Maps, I believe Map My Ride. There's lots of different online tools uh, where you can actually map that route. We liked to actually print that route beforehand and pass it out to people just so they had an idea of where we were going to be taking them. Let's see here. Next slide. So a few other tips. If you're going to be stopping at some different locations to have a discussion or point things out, make sure you stop in locations that can accommodate bikes because bikes are bigger than people, so you just need to make sure there's some space. You can tell people, bring your helmet, bring a bike light if it's going to be a later event, bring a water bottle, bring your lock. So just sending a reminder to people about what to bring, uh, telling people, make sure to obey the rules of the road, and it's a chance to actually educate people about what those rules are. Um, Also, I did want to mention when you're choosing when to do this and what time, what we like to do is have a gathering period. So we would say gather at say 6:15 p.m. and the bike ride will depart at 6:30, just to make it very clear to people, so you're not just kind of waiting around wondering if more people are going to show up. So that's a good idea of something to do when you're communicating. We typically, our bike rides lasted 1 hour to 2 hours. Uh, but of course, it's going to depend on, who you're trying to attract. And we tried to organize these events either on the weekend or sometimes weekday evenings, but we avoided Mondays and also making sure to avoid any dates that had some type of major event. Maybe there's a marathon or some high profile sporting event. So just something to think about as you're making plans. So a couple of other tips for planning a walk. It's nice to have some type of knowledgeable resident involved that can lead that walk. Like so, on the right there, that's an example of a mural walk, and we had some students who were artists who spoke about uh, those murals, and we found that people really enjoy learning something. So if you can give opportunities for people to learn, to gain some knowledge, learn a skill, people appreciate that. And for walks, choosing places that are, if if you're going to be stopping, choosing places that have some shade if it's a hot day, and also away from busy roads so people can hear you speak. And then finally, both for biking and walking, having some type of rain plan is a good idea, whether that means that the event will take place rain or shine, whether that means you'll cancel the event if there is bad weather, or whether you'll be postponing and organizing the event on a backup date. A few other tips when leading an event. We recommend, if you're the leader, introduce yourself, make sure people feel welcome. If people feel included and welcome, they're much more likely to want to return and keep participating in any events you organize. Uh, things don't always go as planned, as Jessica mentioned, so don't worry too much. You'll learn something and your event will be even better next time. Uh, we always found that events took longer than we expected, so kind of build that into your schedule, add an extra 10 or 20 minutes to the event you're trying to organize. And something that we like to do on bike rides, we found a lot of people don't necessarily know how to fit a helmet correctly. So providing, if you see someone whose helmet is just not on right, approach them and help them fix it, and people really appreciate that, and it's good for their safety as well, of course. So a few other tips: we like to add music. It made the event more memorable, made it more fun sometimes. Having icebreakers can also help everyone get to know each other. If it's a small group, you could actually just have everyone introduce themselves. Finding groups or companies that can donate something, whether it's bike helmets or food, treats, or even a bike for a raffle. That's always a crowd pleaser. If you're going for a longer walk or ride, incorporating some stretching activities in the beginning of the event. When we were doing bike rides, we also like to, if we saw someone on the sidewalk or on the street as we were riding along, we like to, wave to them, say hi, and really bike rides are a great way to bring attention to biking. It's not only for the people on the bike ride, but those who are, in their homes or just out and about in the community, they see you and they can think, oh, look at these people, they're biking, maybe I could do something like that. So it's, saying hi to them too can be a nice community building activity. So additionally, event supplies, bring a camera to take photos. It's really, really key to having some photos from your event so you can share that out with people and get them curious about participating in a future event if they weren't able to. Having band-aids, first aid kit never hurts. Having, maybe you want safety vests if you're going to be doing a bike ride. You could bring an air pump, spare tubes, whatever you think is important. Just some things to consider. And also, if you know someone who can fix a flat tire or who has some bike mechanic skills, and invite them on the bike ride, because it never hurts to have someone with those skills along on the ride. And then finally, a few tips about if you're leading a bike ride. We tried to, if we had enough volunteers, we tried to designate, we would have a leader who is leading the group. We would have marshals, and those are corkers, so they would essentially be making sure that as we're going through intersections, they try to cork the intersections so that the group could ride through the intersection freely. And then we had a sweep, someone at the very back who, makes sure no one has any any issue, no one gets separated from the group. Thinking about rules of conduct, it's maybe something you can talk about in the beginning of your ride, and some ideas that, or some things that what we would always bring up. We would say, make sure when we're on the street, stay to the right. If a car needs to get by, we'll stay single file. Uh, you can, let people know, make sure not to go ahead of the ride leader. So, think about what rules you think are important for keeping the group safe, and, discussing those with the group ahead of time. And then also just thinking about, our the group is going to be stopping at stoplights. We'll stop at intersections and make sure to wait for the entire group so we can stay together. So depending on what kind of ride you're doing, just thinking through those details. So that is it for the basic biking and walking ride tips from me. I think we do. Oh, we do have a question from someone. So Jessica, we have a question for you about the bike rodeo.
Okay.
So this is from Patrick Smith, and he was wondering, what design do you use for the rodeo? And he says, I've used the Illinois Secretary of State design for his rodeos, and then he was also wondering, what stations do you have?
When you say design, are we talking about a marketing layout?
Or no, I think just like the rodeo, is it like, are there different stations, and what do those stations look
Okay,
like?
so the layout of
The
the
layout of the
actual
actual
event.
rodeo, yeah, and
Oh,
the
that's a
riding
great
skills
question.
that they're learning.
So, and again, I will say that this is our 31st annual event. It did not start this way. So I don't want someone to take this information and go, I need to do all this in order to have a bike rodeo. You're going to start small. What we are currently at is a few different stations, and I have them set up basically by tents, and each tent has like a yard sign describing what's under the tent. The very first station is registration, and registration is very important because I do like to use the pictures from the bike rodeo for marketing purposes. Of course, without permission from a parent or guardian, you could not use children's photos. So registration is important. At registration, the children receive a T-shirt with the bike rodeo, with our bike rodeos sign on it and our bike info, event info on the back. That's not necessarily to say that you have to hand out T-shirts. You could do as simple as have wristbands, the little paper wristbands you could buy somewhere at the dollar store probably. Something to signify that this child has been registered, and if that child is in a picture, it would be okay to use for marketing. So registration is important. After registration, they can go to many of the different interactive game stations. One very easy, very cheap raffle ticket game station that we have is the Lucky Ducky, where we take a baby pool and we fill it with water and have the floating ducks, and they try to match up the ducks, and when they do, they receive a raffle ticket. And then just different game stations throughout that are similar to something easy like that for littler kids.
Or what about,
Then another station would be underneath a tent, where all of the raffle prizes are held, where they would drop their ticket and decide what raffle prize they want to try to win, is the best way to explain it.
what about the
And then we
actual
have a food
rodeo?
station.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And that food station would be where we feed and provide water or lemonade or treats to the children. And again, if you're starting off new with a bike rodeo, you would not need as many stations. You may not even need a raffle station. You may not need a food station. This is just something that has grown to. Our bike safety obstacle course is part of the parking lot. We block off the parking lot. The police command center is present to help us do that and to also provide support. Like you said, a first aid kit never helps. We're lucky enough to have police and fire on the scene in case something goes wrong. So you definitely want to have your bicycle safety obstacle course. That is something that the police department has been setting up for us for years. If you do not have another group or an entity to set it up for you, it would be as simple as getting some cones. You don't even necessarily have to have a fake stop sign purchased. You could make a stop sign out of cardboard, something to show the children the rules of the roads and how to bike ride safely throughout. Beyond the bike safety obstacle course, registration, food, and raffle prizes, and the interactive games, we also have a building on site there that restrooms to be able to wash your hands, etc. There is a large banner that I put up at the registration area showing what time we do different games. So, for example, at 2 o'clock, we're doing a hula hoop contest. We're doing a scavenger hunt. We're doing the spoon challenge. So anybody that has brought their bike, let's say they get there at 1:30, and they've done the obstacle course and they want to stay for the games, they know what time everything is happening. At 3 o'clock, we're doing wet team games, and we're doing a water balloon toss and a flipper fill-up competition. And so we lay out the information for the residents to know what time we're doing everything. So if they do want to come and all they want to do is participate in the bike rodeo safety course, they can do that. They can still receive a raffle ticket. They can still try to win a bike, but they don't have to stay for all the games. If they want to make an entire afternoon of it, which I have seen probably 99% of the people that attend want to do that, then they know what time all of the events, all of the interactive games are occurring, and they know what to look forward to. So they can ride their bikes around, and they know, I have to be back here at 2 o'clock to take part in the hula hoop contest because I really want to be a part of that. Or if they don't want to do that, they can do the scavenger hunt. So we just give them options. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to keep the kids and the families in the park for the entire time, giving them fun activities, options, get a chance to ride their bike around in between the games, and just have a great day and have fun with it.
Yeah, great. So we organized a couple simple bike rodeos, just the obstacle courses in Chicago when we were doing that program a few years ago, and some other like obstacle course ideas. We had a figure 8, so it kind of taught kids how to do gradual turns and maneuver their bike. We had a stop on a dime activity where they had to ride in a straight line, and then we just used chalk and drew a little line, and they had to stop as close as they could to that line. We got some boxes, some just empty cardboard boxes, and placed them around in an area, and it was a newspaper toss. So these were for maybe more skilled children, where we had them toss a roll of newspaper into the boxes. We had a slow race, so that also is kind of teaching them some balancing skills, and the winner came across the finish line last. So those are a few other rodeo skill building ideas. So does anyone have any other questions, or Jessica or Dave, do you have anything else you wanted to mention?
I do not, except that if anyone thinks of any questions, feel free to email me at bikerodeo60411@gmail.com. I'm happy to get back to you. I check that email every Tuesday and Thursday, so I might not get back to you immediately, but you will get an answer that week.
Okay. And Dave's email is up there as well. So if you have questions about the bike pit stops, he'll be happy to give you more information. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you both so much for taking the time to share your experience organizing events, and thanks to everyone who turned up today, and we'll put this on YouTube so you can share it with other people, or if you want to re-listen to it. So thank you again.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Maggie, for organizing this.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.